Hello. Well, good morning. Thank you for joining us. I'm Speaker Lisa Dameth. We are here to talk about the easiest votes that could be taken here in the legislature this year. House File 3490 opts Minnesota into a federal tax credit program that would ensure Minnesota dollars can be used to benefit Minnesota schools and Minnesota students. There is zero cost to the state for this. Many other states have already opted into the program, including our neighbors in North and South Dakota and Iowa, and blue states such as Virginia and Colorado. If I could ask one thing of you, of the media, when you see the governor, would you please ask him if he will support this bipartisan proposal that both red and blue states have done to benefit our students? If the answer is no, a follow-up would be why not? This is the right thing for Minnesota students. In our last budget, Democrats pushed to a $430 million cut to education, including special education. We're looking for options to minimize the impacts of those cuts, and these dollars are just waiting to be claimed by our schools and our students. We could use the funds for tutoring, extracurricular activities, services for students with special needs. These dollars could help our schools deal with learning loss, school supplies that are often paid for by teachers, and we could also use these dollars to expand opportunities for every Minnesota student. With that, I will turn it over to Leader Harry Niska.
Thank you, Speaker Demuth. This truly is one of the easiest things we should all be able to agree on, and I think it's important to clarify what this bill does not do. It does not create a tax credit program. That program has already been created by federal law. It is not a bill that allows Minnesota taxpayers to donate to these scholarship granting organizations. Minnesota taxpayers are free to do that under that existing federal law. This bill simply answers this question. Do we want that those Minnesota dollars, those Minnesota donations to benefit Minnesota kids? House Republicans say yes. And honestly, we're kind of puzzled why Governor Walz hasn't already said yes. He doesn't need House File 3490. He could do this on his own, but we have offered this legislation to make sure that this happens. If we don't opt into this program, Minnesotans are sending our money to benefit students and schools in other states where those scholarship granting organizations are allowed. And it's very important to emphasize, this benefits private students, yes, and private schools, yes, but it benefits public schools and public school students probably even more, because that money could be used to pay teachers to provide tutoring or academic enrichment outside of their contract hours, like after-school programs and summer academies. It can help families with school supplies, extracurricular activity fees, field trips, musical instruments, and community education programming. 90% of students in Minnesota attend a public school, and so we could expect roughly that percentage of donors, that percentage of parents, to donate to nonprofits that benefit public schools as well. Most parents are going to want to send their money, use this program to follow their students. So it stands to reason that a vast majority of this money will benefit public school students. So again, it's puzzling to us why the governor hasn't already opted in unilaterally and why he wouldn't support this legislation, House File 3490. So I will now turn it over to the chief author of House File 3490, Representative Andrew Myers.
Thank you, everyone, for being here today. My name's Andrew Myers. I've had the privilege for the last 3 years to represent 11 cities in Hennepin County and some of the best schools in the state. I take a lot of pride in that. And education is very personal to me. My mom, growing up, was an educator. My sister is a teacher at a public school, and my 4 kids go to public school. So during my time in the legislature, I've worked really hard to support our schools. I've drafted bills that have looked to provide direct, flexible funding for our schools, increased special ed funding. Recent bill I have to double school safety funding that hasn't been increased in almost a decade, as well as reprioritizing funds away from other projects back into our schools. And, you know, for my personal districts, I mean, they've had to make some tough choices over the last 3 years. They've had to cut staff. They've had to cut resources. I have a second grader that was in a class previously with 21 kids, and now my daughter's in a class with 32 kids. When I got that email from my teacher, she was really stressed out about that. She had not had a class size that big in a long time, and when she did, she was teaching high school. High school kids are very different than second graders, and I think if you're an educator, you know that. You know, the big thing with House File 3490 is about one simple question. Why do we want Minnesota money to benefit Minnesota students, Minnesota educators, and Minnesota schools? This bill is going to opt us into that, and it will be able to give us that opportunity to support our teachers, our schools, and our students. If we don't do that, we're missing out. It's very simple. You know, I have a hearing today later at 1 p.m. in Education Finance, and I think you're going to hear in there, you know, this is an opportunity to bring $100 million to the table. Last week, AMSD just released information that they're following about $220 million in shortfalls. $220 million. We've got to find multiple options and opportunities to support our students, and this is one of those. So in committee, I'm going to ask everybody in there today, put the politics aside. Let's focus on things that we all care about, and that is Minnesota schools, Minnesota educators, and Minnesota students.
Thank you, Representative Myers. My name is Ben Bakeberg. I have the privilege to represent the communities of Prior Lake, Jordan, and Shakopee. And in my normal life, I'm a middle school principal in a public school. And the bottom line, and Representative Myers and the previous speakers have said this very well, the bottom line from this bill is very simple. Do we want Minnesota taxpayer dollars to go to Minnesota kids? So the potential, I just want to walk through the potential of what could be with this bill. Just some simple math. Maybe that's the educator in me coming out. I wasn't a math teacher, so if this is wrong, forgive me. But there's about 300 million taxpayers in Minnesota. Multiply that by the $1,700 tax credit. That's about $5 billion. Think about that. Let that set in. Now, obviously, not everyone is going to do this. So if you cut that in half, there's a potential for $2.5 billion if just half of the taxpayers in Minnesota choose to take advantage of this tax credit. One of the big things that we've heard a lot about is this Blue Ribbon Commission. And this was something that the governor pushed to balance the budget. It is a huge concern to school districts. The superintendents and school boards that were here yesterday talked about the Blue Ribbon Commission. We actually have a bill to repeal that. But if just 5% of the taxpayers in Minnesota take advantage of this and designate the funds to an SGO that's supporting public schools, we could take care of that Blue Ribbon Commission. It's about $255 million. Think about the opportunities here. Think about the opportunities. So if we say yes, we can do that. If we say no, as Leader Niska said, those dollars will be sent out. So as a taxpayer, I could choose to designate and send $1,700 to Iowa, to an SGO in Iowa. I could choose to send to North or South Dakota. I have a family member that lives in Colorado. I could choose an SGO that's really important to him in Colorado that has a Democrat governor, mind you, and I could send my $1,700 to Colorado. That is insane. We need to have Minnesota money for Minnesota kids. To my school colleagues, here's my challenge to you. We trust you to figure it out, to figure out how do we use these dollars to benefit our kids. During COVID, one of the most frustrating times for me professionally, but it was also one of the most rewarding. We literally transformed how we did education on a Sunday afternoon at the community center in Jordan. It wasn't perfect. Lots of things we would do different, but it's that same mindset that our educators have that we can do to make sure that we're getting literally the potential of $5 billion. So whether it's the Blue Ribbon Commission that is coming, whether it's the $430 million in cuts that the governor pushed for last year, saddling our schools with crippling mandates, UI is coming. Last night at the school board meeting where I was at, we made budget reductions. We could address all of those with this. This is very simple. So 2 things to keep in mind. 90% of the kids in Minnesota go to public schools. This is an opportunity for those 90% of parents, grandparents, aunts, uncles to support their local public school with a donation to an SGO, and they get that credit back in their federal taxes. This is the biggest no-brainer that we can do, and I think it's sad that we have to do a bill because the governor can opt in. But once again, Representative Myers is bringing a solution to this problem. So thank you, and with that, Representative Preach is here. Yep.
So thank you to Speaker Damath and Leader Niska, Representative Myers, Representative Bakeberg, and all the education team. First of all, I'm very happy to sign on this bill with Representative Meyer. He loves to look for solutions, and I'm happy to go to those. I will just be very brief. This is a no-brainer. The opposition is turning this into an educational obstacle when it's actually an educational opportunity. And so I'll just say this very quickly to the governor. You could take this off the table by opting out. We could have our committee hearing. We could actually cancel that today. And unless the governor is willing to opt in, I'm not willing to work with him on any of his budget items, which would be special ed, compensatory, and all the funding things. This is a very simple thing. So my challenge to the governor is, Governor, write the letter, opt in today, and I'm with you on trying to find solutions for special ed and the compensatory gaps that we have. So I look forward to House File 3490 moving forward. So thank you.
All right, we'll take questions.
Can you provide some clarity on this scholarship granting organization and how money would flow through them to schools or other entities?
Yep, so the scholarship granting organizations can be set up by almost anyone who wants to. They have to go through a process to do it, but the Education Minnesota could set up scholarship granting organization that would then give scholarships to particular students for all kinds of things. We listed the types of things that they could go for, even for private. Obviously, they could go for tuition for schools that charge tuition, but for charter schools and public schools, things like extracurricular activity fees, field trips. All of that kind of thing could be open for scholarship granting organizations to give scholarships to. Do you have anything to add? All right. It just requires initiative by someone to set up the scholarship granting organization and go through the process. But other states are doing it and setting up these SGOs in ways that have the same benefits for public school students.
One simple way that this could be done is through an education foundation. So there's a mechanism in school districts across the state where they have these education foundations. Those individual foundations would need to make sure that they're meeting the requirements laid out in the bill, and particularly going to students and students in need. So that's the big difference between some of the scholarship granting organizations, those education foundations currently in place, but a golden opportunity to meet the needs of kids. I mean, we've all talked about learning loss, and one of the things that we continually struggle with is getting kids to school during the summer. This would be a way to address that, to address the transportation piece for our kids that are behind and struggling.
Any other questions?
Can you talk about how part of the reason that this was adopted is because some lawmakers want to see this taxpayer funding go to private or other schools, non-public schools. How do you make that argument to Democrats or to the governor about how it potentially helps both public and non-public schools?
So thank you for the question. I don't understand why we keep dividing kids. Kids need resources, kids need education. This is an educational opportunity that benefits every school, every kid in Minnesota. Anybody that tries to divide that is just standing in the way of educational opportunities. So again, I'll reiterate, Governor, sign this, get it to an opt-in, and then we'll work on the other issues. But let's stop dividing our schools. Let's stop making our constituents enemies, when the reality is they're hurting and they need help. And I think the solutions you have here are very evident in an educational opportunity.
Appreciate it. I haven't talked to your co-chair about this.
Well, we can't talk about how they're going to vote or motives and intention. We have talked about it. I'm sure we'll have a robust committee hearing on that, and we'll talk about it. But again, my stance is pretty simple. We have been very clear in helping with the schools. We've tried to repeal mandates. We fixed many of the holes in the budget. We're just simply asking the governor, opt in, allow people to use their money to help their community schools, and then we'll look at the bigger issues. So how my colleagues choose to vote is them, but I don't know why we would restrict people using their own educational generosity.
Any other questions? Thank you. All right, thank you very much. You can ask. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you, everyone.
So did you say that's being brought up in the Senate tomorrow? Okay. What I will say is, as we look at the things coming forward, when we're talking about different amounts of assistance, we have counties that have come to us needing systems upgrades that would actually have prevented some of the fraud that we've seen. And we heard a number yesterday in the fraud committee of what would it take for this systems modernization. $500 million, and it's probably a high number, and that has been known for years. So when we have other things that are popping up, assistance due to people making choices to either not go to work or do other things, there is not an appetite in the House Republican caucus for that. There is an appetite to actually make things more affordable here in the state of Minnesota. We're already paying people not to show up for work through other ways. And so it is time that the legislature, along with the governor, could actually make things better for Minnesota. And we are looking at systems modernization that has been ignored even when we had an $18 billion surplus. We are looking at ways to make things affordable, bringing down car tab fees. And you heard a Democrat legislator yesterday talk about the fact that it's time to quintuple things. You also heard on Monday or on Friday, either way, you heard Co-Chair Pinto talk about studying the effects of shoplifting. And I'm tired of fraud and waste and taxes and everything being a joke to the Democrats here. That is what House Republicans want to do. We want to make things affordable for Minnesotans, end the fraud, and move forward. That's what we have an appetite for. Thank you. I don't think we have anything.
We do have some bills on the gas tax, not specifically about the not that would be triggered by particular price increases, but we do want to reconsider the Democrats' decisions to massively raise gas taxes on Minnesotans that they imposed when they had a trifecta. We're also very strongly opposed and think Minnesotans need to be aware of the announced plan to implement a massive new energy tax that was introduced in the House and in the Senate just last week, co-authored by House DFL leadership, that would massively increase not only energy costs, but costs on everything that Minnesotans have to deal with. So we'll talk more about affordability issues tomorrow as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.